Alright, what's up guys? I've got something a bit different for you today. No film, and there is a landscape in the image, but it's more, the subject of the image is more a person. But I wanted to get a video out to you guys. I am about to go on vacation for a week, so I wanted to keep the content coming. And long before I was doing landscape, I was actually a people photographer. And I don't do too much of that anymore, but I had a shoot last week and was able to create a couple of unique images using a flash, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. So really, I was able to do it with pretty modest equipment and some tricks and software. The equipment for this first is you'll need obviously a light stand. An umbrella is okay. That's all I had, so I used it. A softbox would be better. I'll get to the reasons why for that in just a second. Some sort of light. I use a speedlite, a Canon 580 EX2. You'll need a tripod and obviously camera and lens. I used the 5D Mark III, and for this shot I really wanted to emphasize the landscape, so I used a wide angle lens, the 16-35. Now I know that's not an ideal portrait lens, but this particular shot wasn't really a portrait, it was more capturing a person in a landscape. So I didn't actually take any video of the shoot itself, but thankfully I am a bit of a graphic design expert in Photoshop, so I have set up and drawn for you guys exactly what it looked like. And I mean, you can really see the expertise in this drawing here. So camera on a tripod. Tripod is very important. I'll get to that in just a second. I put the subject, the very pregnant subject, in the lower right hand corner of the image, and then kind of the classic light is positioned at a 45-degree angle to the subject. So let's go over kind of the strategy for shooting this and the camera settings. First thing you want to do is get your exposure correct for the landscape. And in this case, I was shooting at 1/200th of a second. Now, that shutter speed is because that is my fastest sync speed on my camera. It's the fastest that the shutter can be while the flash fires off and gives even illumination. So I can't really adjust that any faster without doing some tricks with a flash that don't really turn out too well. ISO is pretty low, it's at 160, and at these settings, to get the correct exposure to the landscape, my aperture, I have to close it down all the way to f6.3. Now what this means is aperture determines how much light a flash lets in, so I'm really going to have to crank the power up on the flash because that is a relatively small aperture. So just from experience, I know that there's no way shooting wide angle I'm going to get this flash out of the frame. So like I said, I know that from experience. I planned for it, not a big deal. So once I get the correct exposure for the landscape itself, I just experiment with where I want the flash, how close I want it, when to get the correct exposure on my sister. The flash settings, they're set at manual control and maximum power, and you can see even at that I have to be very close to her to get correct illumination. There's just no way to pull that outside the frame. So once you get the correct flash to subject distance, your camera's on a tripod, take a picture, have her pose however she wants to pose, take a picture with the flash going off, and then without moving anything, without changing any settings, pull the flash out of the scene and take the exact same image. What you're concentrating on is getting this, in this case, the left hand side of the image. You want to get your exposure correct on that. So pull the flash out, take the same shot, and then you're ready to edit it in software. So the way I edit this in Lightroom, I use Vosco film settings, and I've got Kodak Portra 160. That is, just click on that. That is the stock setting that they give you right out of the box, with the exception of, I took the grain out. I don't like simulated grain in my digital images. So real quick how I edit that, I'll open up the shadows a little bit, drag down the highlights, and what I'm looking for as I'm editing is just getting the color and the light correct on the subject here. Not as concerned with the landscape. Obviously I don't want it to go crazy wonky on me, but I'm mostly looking at getting the settings correct on my subject over here. So we'll bring down the shadows a little bit, maybe reduce the contrast, give the color a bit of punch here, a little bit of saturation, a little bit of vibrance. And it may be hard to see this on YouTube, but there's a big bank of trees behind me that's throwing in some green light on her, so we'll just increase the tint a little bit, and that's looking pretty good. Again, I'm concentrating on my sister here, making sure color is correct there. Okay, so once you get, we'll call this the subject image, once you get it correct, it's very important to sync the exact same settings to your landscape image, the shot that's exposed correctly for the landscape. So command click that image, sync, make sure everything is checked up here, synchronize it, and then your landscape shot will have the exact same color, exact same settings as your subject shot. So we want to open up both of these in Photoshop now. So right click, go up to edit in, and open as layers in Photoshop. And I'm using ancient versions of this, but they're compatible, so open anyway. Okay, so once they're open in Photoshop here, you want to make sure that your subject shot, the shot with the flash in it, is the top layer here. If it's not, you can reorder them by dragging the layers down here on the right side. You can switch that. Now with your subject shot here, we want to open up a layer mask. So drag it down here to the layer mask icon, and we want to brush out this umbrella, and in this case my dad holding it over here. So in a layer mask, the way to make that disappear is by painting black on the layer mask. So make sure black is selected as your foreground color over here. If it's not, you can click this button. It's a little black and white, one on top of the other, that switches it to white and black, and then hit the X until black is your foreground color. So now we've got our brush. Let's increase the brush size here, and we want opacity at 100, so hit the number 0 to get it up to 100. Right click, hardness all the way down to 0. That's going to blend it really smoothly. And then you just brush out your light. Making sure you get it all brushed out. And yeah, seamless, very, very smooth. Because your camera was on a tripod, everything over here on the left side of the image stayed the exact same. And we've got a pretty decent image there. One thing I need to clean up a little bit is we've got this hot spot down here just in front of my sister that's kind of distracting to me. This is where a softbox would be better. It directs the light more toward the subject. With an umbrella, you've got a lot of spill over there. But like I said, I don't have a softbox, and I can kind of mitigate this in software. We want to blend the two exposures a little bit. So instead of brushing your mask at 100%, hit the number 5, take it down to 50, and you can just kind of evenly blend that. The light that's a little bit closer to her, if you want to brush that out a little bit more at a lower opacity, maybe 30%, and just lightly go over that again. And that way we've taken away the hot spot there, and yeah, I think that looks pretty good, honestly, for doing that in software. But that's how I created that image. I think that turned out pretty well. The lighting we had on that day was kind of overcast, a little bit diffuse, and it was decent, but nothing special. This was a shot taken with no flash, and you can see, I mean, it's even lighting, but there's nothing too exciting about it. But what we did here is, I think, just spiced it up a little bit, create a little bit nicer image. And then I'll show you one later on we took in the evening using the same principles, the same techniques. There was a little bit of color in the sky, and we were able to come away with this image. It's okay. There were some challenges with this. It was windy, and this grass was really tall, so there was movement between the two exposures. So there's some blurring on the left side. It doesn't detract too much. But yeah, we were able to capture the color in the sky as well as illuminate the subject. And again, I think a pretty decent image for having to create the light there that we did. So anyway, I know this video was different. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll get back to filming landscapes as soon as I get back from vacation. But if you did enjoy the image, be sure and give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.